All right. Hey, guys, welcome to the Always Moving Forward podcast. I am Landon Johnson, your host. And today I am joined by my very special guest and good friend, Wayne Daniel. Hey, welcome to the show, Wayne.
Hey, thanks for having me.
Yeah, man. It's good to have you. This is the second time I've had you on the show. You're our first guest that we've brought back, right?
Yeah, I feel important. I feel like I feel like you like me.
I do like you, man. For those of you that don't know, Wayne is the guy that got me into real estate. He was the first one that I spoke to actually about how to get a license. I met with him for the very first time and went through all the details. He closed me that day. I'll give you credit for that. You said, man, let's get down to it. What's it going to take for you to sign? I signed up that day and haven't looked back since. So Wayne's meant a lot to me in my career. And now we're kind of teaming back up and trying to do a lot of big things. And we'll get into that today. But before we do get into that, man, I guess I want to talk to a lot about, some things that maybe people don't know about you. And I know you're really involved in ministry. And this time of the year, I usually see that video that pops out of you singing, and you've got a great singing voice. So tell me about that a little bit. What are you doing outside of real estate? What's life look like there?
It's really funny that you say that because Jonathan always said to me after he heard that, he said, "Oh my goodness, Wade's got the voice of an angel." And I enjoy singing. I love it. That's what I went to school for when I graduated from Liberty University with a degree in worship and music.
Yeah.
And I wouldn't say that I never thought that I'd go into real estate. I knew I'd probably do something with it because my dad is fully involved, but my intentions was to have some kind of job that would fund me being able to travel and sing. And real estate really has been that for me. And I saw it on my feed this morning. 7 years ago, I put out my first CD.
Oh,
And
wow.
Mary Did You Know was my favorite song that I did that. And
Yeah.
so I think I'm due for another one soon.
Yeah, I would agree, man. I'd love to see it. So I'm hearing that right. So real estate actually was secondary. That was going to fuel you being able to sing.
Yeah, because
Okay.
singing in churches, it's very difficult to get traction in that. I mean, you
Yeah.
got to
Yeah.
kind of somewhat, and somewhat it's a sad thing, but it's not. Where if you're not well known and can get out there, and when it comes to music and you go and travel, you got to have a lot of bookings in order to make it a career.
Right.
And I didn't care for it to be so much of a career as it is. I wanted to be able to go into these churches that can't afford to have good singers in there,
Yeah.
and just bless them. And one of my I'll give a shout out to Charles Billingsley, one of my mentors growing up, guy that
Name drop. Name
yeah,
drop.
name drop. Yeah, I can give a whole nother story another time. I'd love to have him on a podcast one time because the
I
story
would
that I
love that
have,
too. Yeah.
I'll get him more because I tell you what, the story I have of meeting him, I'm like a fanboy, man. I was like, oh,
Yeah. Yeah.
but he has just been such an inspiration to me. And what he does this. Check this out. He'll go into these cities and go to his big churches and stuff like that. But then on that next day or next Sunday, like he usually does a concert on a Friday, Saturday, he'll book a Sunday at a smaller church that may not afford him and not charge a whole lot just to bless them.
Yeah.
That
Yeah.
to me speaks volumes in somebody. And
Yeah.
so that was kind of the trajectory I wanted to go. I knew I wouldn't be as big as him and those
Right.
kind of things. But yeah, singing is one of my favorite things to do.
Oh, that's awesome. Yeah. And I know like it seems like this time of year, that's where, because I don't think about that. And then this time, that's the video that pops up of that Mary Did You Know? And I'll see everybody loves it. So yeah, man, looking forward to that. Well, hey, we transition a little bit into the business side of things. And I know your backstory a little bit, kind of where you came from and how you got to where you are now. But just, kind of bullet points for those listening, like when you started in real estate, tell me about how you got into it and then the path that you've taken to get to where you are. Let's give our viewers some background on that.
Yeah, I'll start it this way. Lots of ups and downs.
Yeah.
Lots of ups and downs. Lots of failing forward. And interesting, let me throw this out. My dad's been in this business for over 35 years and very successful.
Yeah.
Huge name when it comes to real estate, and I still fail forward. and he'll tell you he still fails forward. I mean, so I started in real estate in Orlando, Florida. We were there for about 2.5 years. My wife and I had our first child, and we decided to come back to Lynchburg. It was too hot for us there.
Yeah.
And so, but we did very well for the 2 years that I had, and we'll get into this a little bit later because I know you have a question about it. Is I ended up with a guy that I really took to there. And we started doing business together. Not so much a partnership as it is just started working together, because I believe that you cannot succeed alone. And so we linked up, and we had a great relationship. And when I left, I kind of gave my business to him. And so getting in depth in the business side of it, we'll do that another time for that particular one. But I left there feeling really good about transitioning over here. I kept my license there for a little while. Biggest mistake I ever made was letting that license lapse.
Yeah.
We'll talk about that because I'm a very, very big on, if you got licenses everywhere, just keep them.
Keep them.
You never know where life will take you next.
Right.
So we came back to Lynchburg, and when we came here, oddly enough, I always tell people this is, when I get into a buyer's presentation, I tell them, what are the top 3 things you must have in a house that you cannot do without? If you get to 5 or more, you probably need new construction because it's very difficult to find. Well, we had a list of 20 things, it felt like, on I never saw the house. My wife went there, and guess what? She found almost every single one of them, down to the laundry chute.
Yeah.
The laundry chute in it.
Yeah.
So we ended up buying that house, and we moved here. And I knew I'd start with Keller Williams right away. That's where I started there in Orlando. My dad was with Keller Williams. My sister eventually went into Keller Williams, and Keller Williams has been a really big part of our family. And I came here, they had just kind of started out, and I helped with, just being a team member, I guess you can say, a part of the group. Because you know how Keller Williams is. We both come from there. You got it with God Family Business. It really kind of reined in on that. Yeah. So I felt I did very well in my first 2 years. I knew I had, let me say this. I knew I had 2 years to do what I do, what I was taught from my dad, calling expireds, calling force about. I didn't know anybody in the area. Yeah, I went to school, but I didn't establish myself with relationships, just like I went to Florida and knew nobody and built a company. Yeah. And so I knew I had a small window of time to execute what I needed to do as fast as possible, because I knew everybody else was going to try to do the same thing. And that's okay, because we knew it was going to happen. Yeah. So I did fairly well. I built a big team in Keller Williams here. And this is where I started getting into mistakes and stuff, and we'll get to that a little bit later. Yeah. And those are just the journey that you go on. But I grew my team to where it was at that time in 2016. I was afforded the opportunity to open up a Keller Williams in Roanoke. And as you know, we grew that within a year to about 58 agents, which once we got to about 56, 58 agents, I tell you, man, it was a whole new world. Yeah. And then 3 years later, you get it to 100. And it was tough.
And don't understate, there was no Keller Williams here. Shout out Debbie Giles, had a great team, and Debbie's a great agent, love her. But outside of that, it was not here. Nobody knew who Keller Williams was, especially to be as big of a company as they are. And so you built that from the ground up. I mean, that was a big undertaking.
Well, let's preface that even more. I appreciate you saying that. I'd like to take a little bit of time of that. Is not only that, I didn't know what I was getting myself into at the time until I got into it. And then you start hearing everybody. When I took that opportunity, I looked at it this way, and this is really good for people to know. I didn't have any knowledge of what actually was the reputation. Okay. The good part about that is nobody knew who I was coming into Roanoke. And my mindset was not, oh man, I'm going to have to jump this hurdle. Oh, I'm going to have to jump this hurdle. Oh, these people don't like this person, this and that. None of that. I didn't care, because I knew what I can do. And I knew my vision. I knew what I wanted for the company. I knew what I wanted to do to build it. And I executed it very well. And so what I found out afterwards, they had tried to put a Keller Williams there for 8 years. 8 years, and they failed. And I'm not saying that to push back. I'm saying that's just what happened. We all fail forward. 8 years. And my first thing I did when I got there was I went straight to LAR, went to Laura Benjamin because she's the CEO over there. She had
Yeah.
no clue who I was. Walked in and I said, I want to join a committee. She's like, what? You haven't even joined the LAR yet, or the RVAR?
RVA, sure.
I'm like, okay. I want to join the education committee because I love education. I love teaching. I love doing that. She says, you are the first person ever to join a committee before even joining the RVAR. First time ever. And
Yeah.
I didn't mean that to impress her or anything like that. I just wanted to get involved as quick as possible. So
Right.
her and I became really, I feel like became really good friends with her. And I remember her saying, you know, it's going to be tough here. It's tough to get things started. And she's seen how Keller Williams was. Well, we turned that around very quickly and became, you know, one of the rising ones at the time. And a lot of the big names were head turning, saying, what in the world? It wasn't so much Keller Williams. What? Who?
Yeah.
It's now, oh, Keller Williams. And so I left after 3 years with some ups and downs. There's some leadership things that were going on. And so I decided to part ways. And I tell you this, I went to a smaller company called Mark Dalton here in Lynchburg. And let me say, they're not small.
Yeah.
Okay. They dominated the area during my time. In fact, they were number one over the Keller Williams here for several years. And I'll give you the contributed factor to that is the fact that Mark Dalton is a heck of a broker.
Yeah.
He keeps his word and he leaves you alone, but he also, if you need him, he's there at a phone call. And that's what you need. And I preface that because that's where our leadership comes in.
Mm-hmm.
Is always being there for their people. And so I needed that rest. And then after that, I decided there was some big things brewing over at this place called EXP.
Yeah.
And so I jumped into that. And mind you, I have been recruited several times, tried to be recruited by EXP agents. Wonderful agents. Love them so much. They just could not they just could not say the right words and really understand what EXP really could do for you, not just
so let me stop you here because I want people to understand that when you were with Keller Williams, you know, you and your family, you know, you said your sister was part of it and your dad was right up there. I mean, he was in Gary Keller's circle. I mean, I don't think that's an understatement to say that he could have called, like, you guys were Keller Williams. And so when you left, Keller Williams is a great company, but when it turned a lot of heads, like you just said, when you made a transition into EXP. And so tell me a little bit about that, of why the exit from Keller Williams, and then what in the world did you see that was appealing about EXP for you to say, okay, this is where I want to grow now?
Yeah, you know, I do want to preface it with this, and this is always something that you should do, and I express this to everybody, is Keller Williams itself got me to where I am. Mm-hmm. I attribute it to two different people, my dad and Keller Williams. They got me to where I am. The second part of that, or I guess third part of that, is the people that I surrounded myself with got me to where I am too. And I appreciate all of them, even the ones that may have hurt me. Yeah. I appreciate learning from it. But it also, like our relationship, just we talked about this several times, being able to circle back around to each other. Yeah. You know, leaving Keller Williams was not an easy decision. Yeah. It was probably one of the hardest decisions that I had to make, my dad had to make. And yet the reason we left is because we started seeing the writing on the wall that EXP, once you understood the model, if you take both the mirror image, they kind of do the same things on a surface level. It's just with EXP, if you really want to dive in very, very deep to it, here's the best part about it. I get all my money back and more. So everybody talks about that. Well, I need to make more, you know, they charge so much. They do this, these little fees. That EXP does the exact same thing, but they're better in the sense that I get that money back because I'm already doing the same activities, the same stuff that I did at Keller Williams. And yet I do the same activities over here. And not only do I pay my money in, I get it back. I get it back in stocks. I get it back in all this. And it's not the penny stocks that I remember going against. Oh, you're not going to make any money off EXP and stuff like that. Dude, I've only been here for less than 6 months, and I already got $1,000 in their stock, and I didn't put a dime in other than recruiting and doing transactions.
Yeah.
And so, to know that the end game is retirement money, money that's coming back that I put into the company, but the company never put in me. I'll say this. It's kind of squirrels off on this. I always taught agents this, and I don't mean any disrespect to lenders and title companies and all of them. I always they work for me. I don't work for them. If you think about that, on the surface level, I give, let's say you're my lender. I give you a buyer and you qualify them, you get them through, and you do that. That is your job. That's status quo. Well, I don't ask for things from people. I'm not that type. You give me one, I'll give you one. I'm loyal to people who take care of me in other ways. Dave Henry, I'll give a shout out to him. That man, I tell you what, since day one that I brought him on to Keller Williams, he has done nothing but take care of me. Yeah. He's given me, I don't know if I should say this on here, but he has, given a little business on the side and stuff like that, because I know he's got a wide spread of people that he gives, that he can't do that. I can't just give business to you and everybody. I got all that.
Yeah.
But if there's a friend that needs help or something like that, there's times that might happen. But I wore this hat to talk about him. He took me out golfing one time and just absolutely doted on me. He didn't have to. He didn't have to do that kind of stuff. But that's the kind of relationship that I want with somebody, that when I'm giving them a lot of business, I expect them to think of me. I don't ask for it. I'm not one that's like, oh, well, you don't do that, I'm not going to go with you anymore. It's just, it's nice to have. And so when I go back to Keller Williams and making that transition over to EXP, it was kind of a no-brainer. I mean, they're going into the future. They're the new Netflix. They're the new Amazon. I mean, they're the ones that are toting that line to get into that next step of real estate. And so for me, the other part of that is the expansion of like 5 Stone. I don't have to worry about myself. I can worry about other people. And guess what? That's what I did in leadership anyways.
Right.
The last part I'll say about that, and this might get a little controversy in a sense, I don't have to deal with a team leader or an OP.
Right.
I know I'm gonna say it. I was a team leader. I was a CEO. I desired to be an OP and didn't get the job.
Yeah.
Okay. And so the problem I have with that is the fact that, and I can say it because I was in the position, is the fact that if you don't do it well and do it right, you will hurt a lot of people. Okay. I felt like in my position at that time, one of the things that was said to me was this, and it's very clear to me. I didn't have a team. I didn't do real estate during that time. So I needed to make money. I took a small salary to do that job, to grow that business, because I knew it was going to be hard and I knew we had to start out.
Yeah.
I drove an hour and a half there, an hour and a half back, because I desired to do big things with other people.
Yeah.
And when you don't get the end result of the hard work you do, you also need to take some time to move and look at something else.
Yeah.
And
go ahead. I don't want to cut you off.
No, go ahead.
Well, so I think we could talk about this all day, and maybe we need to dedicate just some time for you and me to talk about some of the things that we've learned. Yeah. But some of the things that you just said there, and as you're explaining that, it's like, guys, this is why EXP is different than Keller Williams. It's top down versus agent down. And so what you're saying is I had to take a salary. We talk about profit share versus rev share. There's just so many differences there. And the biggest one to me with profit share, and I can't tell you that I can explain it. I don't know anybody that really can, but it's got to go through all those layers. It's got to go through, Keller Williams. It's got to go through the ownership. It's got to go through the regional managers, directors. Then you got to pay your staff. And then what's left over is some algorithm of what you get. With EXP, you came in and you explained very simply, just a business point of view. If this person closes this, you get this
It
every
shows up.
single time.
It shows
And
up.
I think that was huge because it's, you say it's the new Netflix. It's the new model versus the old fashioned model.
Yeah.
It's the one that worked. Keller Williams dominated for 10, 20 years. Great company, great leadership. But I do it. It makes sense of, hey, if you're looking from just a strictly business point of view, which one long term makes you more money? I think it's a no brainer. And people, you said this, and I couldn't agree more. People have not done a good job of explaining that because
Yeah.
you hear EXP, you hear, oh, I'm being recruited, I'm being recruited. Yeah, we do want you and we want to recruit you, but there's also so much value here, and we care about you. We want to see you do well. So,
It's interesting. I'll jump a little further than that. We talked about as well is I've also said I don't. This it comes out wrong sometimes. I really don't care about the brokerage sometimes.
mm-hmm.
It's the people, and I know you're good. You got a question of this. It's the people you surround yourself with.
Yeah, yeah,
And whether that's why I went to Mark Dalton is because I knew the reputation he had and the people that were there that I could rest with.
yeah, yeah,
And I knew I wanted more. I knew that I liked big things and doing big things and challenging myself and things of that nature and those kind of things. So it was inevitable that at some point I'd do something different.
right,
But I wouldn't change it for the world because it really it made you come back to understanding that yes, EXP is where I'm at. EXP is where you're at in that sense. But if you really dial it down, 5 Stone is really where I wanted to be
yeah,
in the sense of how we interact with each other and how we're going to do life together.
right,
I don't like just spending 3 years with you and
yeah,
3 years with the people that I was with. I want to do more.
yeah,
And so, EXP just happens to be a better choice. And we'll go into those details later for that.
right.
But that is very well said in the sense of why we did that.
So I think that's a great transition into one of the other questions that I had. And I want to talk about leadership and mentorship. But I think that the natural pivot here is to talk about surrounding yourself with good people. And I'd love to hear from you, kind of your experience with that, the importance of it, and then how do you find that positive people that are going to help you grow? Speak to that a little bit for me.
Let's put it this way. If you pick the wrong people, see all that? That's
Yeah.
what you're gonna get, Landon. Right there. And people call that a wisdom. I'm sitting here going, it's a lot of years taken off of you. And I'll
Absolutely.
be honest with you, I thought about that. I jokingly say it, but I did think about that over the night, and I think about it all the time, is the fact that you pick the wrong people that you surround yourself with, you will lose years off your life.
Yeah.
You'll
Yeah.
have scarred relationships. You'll have scarred relationships with your family sometimes, and turmoil within your family. A lot of money lost. And here's the thing with money: you can't take it with you. That's
Right.
the first thing. But the other is you can make it back. It's about the mindset and stuff like that. But leadership, yeah, who you surround yourself with is the most important. You cannot do this life alone. I implore you to not do this alone. I did feel, I will say this, when I was in that leadership role, there was moments that I felt I was alone. Like I was on an island by myself, doing this all by myself. And until I seeked out that help, I remember calling Vlad, and one of the best guys in the world, if you ask me. And I remember him saying, "You just got to start over." I was like, "Start over? I've got almost, I think we were close to 80 agents." And I remember this one person who just really kind of came in. And like I said, with leadership, you got to surround yourself with the right people. I just surrounded myself. I pulled the wrong person in. And I remember, the call yesterday, we were talking with Karen. And as soon as you have that cancer come in, you got to get it out quick.
Yeah.
That's the biggest thing you got to do. And I remember sitting there going, "Oh, what a mistake I made. Oh my gosh, what do I do with this?" And I remember him saying, "You just got to start over."
Mm,
And as simple as it was for him to say that, he said, it's not just disregard everybody and stuff like that. It's just like, look, just start from when you were excited at the beginning.
yeah.
Remember when you were happy? Remember what did you do differently then that you should be doing now? What did you forget that you were doing? What did you forget about how you were? what changed you?
Right.
And you got to start thinking through those things. Was it greed? Was it money? Was it people that you're not whoever you hang out with, you will start morphing into.
Right.
And so, leadership comes with a lot of great opportunity, and it could come with a lot of grief if you don't watch yourself.
Yeah. So points that I heard you say there, surrounding yourself, it's not just good people, but it's people that have a like mind to you that are going to help you grow. And then when you do identify, hey, I made a bad hire. Hey, I've surrounded myself with somebody that is a cancer, that's not pushing me in the direction I want to go. Doesn't mean they're a bad person, just means it's not a good fit.
Yeah.
But to make that decision quickly, the adage, hire slow, fire fast.
Yeah.
Get rid of them, start over, so that way you can still meet your goals, have the end in mind. So yeah, I think that's great advice. What would you say through that experience? And I think you just kind of touched on it, but with some of and I'm going to call it failure because I want to call it what it is. When you make that mistake, call it out, be direct. That was a failure. Let me learn from it. But what would you say with partnerships and with, some of the decisions that you've made in leadership? You said failing forward. Tell me about that a little bit. What would you say some of your failures that you've learned from and grown from?
It's hard in the moment when you're there, because if you don't, and I'll be the first to tell you, I'm trying to remember the only person I had that I could go to that I knew for sure would guide me, get me through it, and be by my side all the time was my dad.
Yeah.
It was very difficult because I want to think back at certain people that were a part of my life during those certain transactions. For instance, when I built my team in Lynchburg and my business partner there, and then, being there at the Cal, I want to be able to say I failed and then got into a group with my leadership and was like, all right, how do we get out of this? It was more of, all right, Wayne, how do we get out of this?
Yeah.
Now, part of that was my fault. I didn't build the relationship either the right way, or I just didn't surround myself with the right people. And when I say that, because here's the thing, when it came along to you and Jonathan, I've always said this from when I left, is the things that happened to me and the things that happened after that, there was never one time that I couldn't call you guys and y'all uplifted me. Whether it was just talking and getting through the mindset of it. But that's the key to a failure or a setback, is your mindset. And if you don't have the correct mindset to just get it out of your head, shake your head off, get dusted off. I watch a lot of sports and stuff like that, and I enjoy that. And the other day I remember watching, I think it was the Bengals, and the kicker kicks, and he just barely misses. And man, what it would have changed. It changed the trajectory of the game. And then the last kick was him kicking it in. And I want to know what he went through in his head. I want to know from start to finish. Oh, I that failure of missing it the first time, and now the disappointment and everything, and then getting up there and trying to do it again. I don't know if y'all saw this. He kicked it, turned, and put his head down because he thought he missed it.
Yeah.
And the coach went crazy, and he turned around and he made it.
Right.
That's where I want to understand the mindset of that failure. He felt again like a failure, but yet he succeeded because he did it. The mechanics is what made him go up there and kick that field goal, not him. Yeah. So I would say the biggest thing out of failure to get yourself back in the trajectory of where you need to go is to pick yourself back up. I know it sounds so cliche. Dust yourself off, get up and do it again.
Yeah.
And be a better version of you. Dana Kokoska was so good at this, and I wish I was better. I'm trying my best. Journal it.
Yeah.
Journal it. Write it down. You may write a book one day. You might have aspirations of writing a book. Well, you can't write a book without having it written down. Yeah. But the reality is you can go back and you say, man, what a stupid move I just made.
Yeah. Or you get to see, this was my mindset. And I'm going to, a piece of advice I've done, and I love that I did. I got some good advice. Was Craig Rochelle. He leads a leadership podcast. He's a pastor of a huge church. But it's a 5-year journal. and I write every single day. And so I get to go back to 2020, 2019, when we were going through a lot of this transition, and I get to see what I was struggling with. And now I get to see where I'm at and what the result of that failure was. The other thing I'd add to that, and you said it, and I just want to reiterate it, is being prepared for that failure and embracing it. That it's something that don't hit the failure, stop, get discouraged. That's something that's going to come with success. You're not going to avoid failure. You're not going to avoid setback. So you've got to have your mind set ready when it does come. All right, what can I learn from this? And know that you're going to grow from it. So yeah, I think that's great, man. I think that's a lot of good advice. So let's wrap this up. Last question that I want to get your take on, just some practical advice for agents that they've got big goals. They want to grow a team, or they want to be a successful agent in a really tough market. What would you say your piece of advice to being a leader in real estate would be? What to the agent that has big goals and just doesn't know where to go? What would you say to that agent?
Link up with a group that is going to propel you in that direction, who has done it, who has succeeded from it, who has been in the trenches and those kind of things. Now, I will say this: get with someone who is going to be genuine, not feed you a bunch of fluff. That was one thing when I was recruiting agents and sitting down with them, and I hope you can probably a testament to this, is that I want to meet the person where they're at right then. I want to know their goals. I want to know their what their aspirations. I hope they think big, but some people don't. A lot of people don't think big. They remember Rob saying this: "You thinking small does the world no good." I don't think he coined that. I'm sure it came from somewhere else, probably Gary Keller or something like that. But you thinking small does the world no good, and a lot of people think small.
Yeah.
And in order to think big in your world, my big is probably totally different than some people's big. My dad's big is way bigger than everybody else's big.
Yeah.
But aligning yourself with like-minded people like us. I mean, this look, I'm not the type that just beats around the bush. I'd recruit you all day long. I love every single person that comes along. I want to meet you where you're at. We'd love to have on our group in that sense. Five Stone would be more than a happy organization to take you. And that's where we're at. If you're not aligning yourself with these types of people, with Landons, with the Jonathans, with the Karas, with all of those that are out there, you're going to struggle, because it's tough to trust anybody anymore. It's kind of always been that way. We could spiritualize it and bring it all the way back to Adam. But the reality is that we are in this world that is hard to navigate it. And I'll leave you with this. My dad says it best: in business, it's a big green monster that will chew you up, spit you out, and doesn't care about your feelings. It really doesn't. But I can tell you this wholeheartedly, with everything that we've gone through, I care about your feelings. I care about you. I care about your business. And I can tell you for sure, the landscape of real estate is changing. And here at EXP, here at Five Stone, here in our organization, we strive to make sure we navigate it well, and those with us will navigate it with us and succeed.
That's right.
And so you must align yourself with people who want to succeed with you and want to come alongside and give you what you desire and help you with what you want.
Yeah. Yeah. No, I think that's great. And all that goes together. And I don't think we really did that intentionally, but it's from leadership, it's surrounding yourself with good people, identifying people that are like-minded, and then down to we're talking to the agent, like, okay, well, how do I grow? How do I get better at this? And it's the same answer. Surround yourself with good people that care about you and care about your goals, and want to ask. So, but yeah, man, we'll wrap up with that. I really appreciate having you on. We will definitely do it again. But thank you guys for listening to the Always Moving Forward podcast. Remember to always move forward. Thanks for listening, guys.